Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of For What It's Worth. It's Jessica and Kayla here again, and today we're going to talk about the Olympics.
Yes, very exciting. I do feel like I'm normally a Summer Olympics person, but this year I found myself a little more tuned into the Winter Olympics, which is part of what we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
But I was a lifelong swimmer, and so that was my stuff with the Summer Olympics.
Yep.
I would love to be a figure skater or something like that, but I don't have the talent. So I was never really super into the Winter Olympics, but this year I was dialed in, and so are many of my friends. So it's been an interesting year at the Winter Olympics in Milan.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're going to jump right into this episode. So if you don't follow us, make sure you click subscribe so you never miss an upload from us. And we'd also love to hear your opinion because that's what this is all about, is For What It's Worth and sharing our opinions. So let's jump right in. So why do you think that you were more in tune to the Winter Olympics this year, or people in general? Because from what I read, it is true that people were more watching it and paid more attention
More
to the
engaged.
Winter Olympics. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it was specifically like, I don't know if I'd call them fails, but there were quite a few like big like upsets that happened this year at the Winter Olympics. So people who we thought were going to go all the way who didn't, or people that we were rooting for who ended up with injuries or fails, unfortunately, or even just like the controversy of the whole hockey team, all that stuff.
Right.
I think it was just kind of the spectacle of it all that was really making us all tune in. So that's kind of where we were at, because we were watching it every week or just staying in touch with things. Because, for example, like Amber Glenn, she's a figure skater who's had a really, like, I love her. I think she's great. She skated to Madonna, Like a Prayer.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, I would love to see her skate. I'm so rooting for her. And I was about to tune into the broadcast to watch her, and I got a news notification that she'd fallen like, I think it was twice, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Yep.
she had, again, some failed jumps and stuff that immediately knocked her out. And she was the gold medal favorite for the U.S., which was then eventually taken by the person who was supposed to be maybe the silver medalist or the bronze medalist, Alyssa
Right.
Liu. So I feel like that was one of the things where I was really rooting for that person personally. And
Yeah.
then someone else just kind of came up from behind, and it was like, oh my God. So that's what
Right.
everyone's talking about now, I would say.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think there was a lot of headlines because it wasn't just her, but our, the male figure skater, the quad god, right? And I think that's what it was so funny, because even before he had fallen, I tuned in because I saw his nickname and I thought that was really fun, and how they talked about him and how great, this was going to be. And I think that just made, like you said, you saw the headlines and you wanted to kind of be a part of that. I think also, the Lindsey Vonn thing that happened, wasn't it like the week before she got injured, tore her ACL or whatever? And so it immediately, and then when you heard she was going to compete, you were like, okay, again, I have to watch this because I cannot believe this is going to happen.
Right.
And then we all know what happened. So I think, people were watching it more. Those headlines were really big this year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then on the hockey side of things, which was all anyone was talking about for the last couple of weeks, I remember like in Minnesota, we're big hockey people. So that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on. And so even on my college campus, like the big thing was, well, the women won and then the men won too. I'm like, gosh, this is incredible. This is amazing. And it went sour like in record time. All of a sudden, those headlines had completely changed. And it was less about both teams winning historically. Like that was insane.
Right.
And then it's
In overtime against Canada, both of them.
both of them. I know.
You can't make this
Right,
stuff up.
right. And then the fastest like PR fail of all time just went downhill, and it's continued to be handled really interestingly ever since. So it started this whole topic of conversation around like women in sports. We've been talking about it on our college campus for weeks because we're split on a men's and women's campus. And just typically the women's sports get less of a turnout. I mean,
Right.
Johnny football is huge
Right.
at my college. And so like it's always been a little bit less of a cultural thing for us when it comes to Benny athletics, which is such a shame, and it shouldn't be that way. And I do think it's trending in the right direction. But we were talking about it a lot, where it's just like, for equal accomplishments, how do we approach different teams and different people? Oh my gosh.
Right.
I had never seen such a quick turnaround. First, everyone was sharing all the, oh my gosh, the men won too on their Instagrams. And then I saw people started to take it down because they were like, oh, oh, never mind.
Right.
Not so happy anymore.
Right. Yeah. And I think, like you said, it makes me wonder too, regionally, winter's just winter here in Minnesota versus the other parts of the country necessarily. Because, we had a lot more athletes.
Right.
The curling team,
Huge.
I mean, being from Duluth, especially the mixed, being from Duluth was really cool to watch, I think, in this area. And then, I mean, I was excited to see that the women's curling went further than the men's because of that issue, right?
Right.
Because you just want to see that because you just, as women, we don't see that covered as much. And so you're kind of cheering for that to happen. And so I think, yeah, in this area, definitely the Winter Olympics really picked up. I think across the country it did, though, too. And one of the biggest things that I think contributed to it was, the previous Olympics that NBC really brought on Snoop Dogg, right?
Yeah.
I mean, such a kind of random thing that you would think, but he got so much hype. And so then for them to bring him back for the Winter Olympics, I think was huge. And then I think it leads also into, even though they're the Summer Olympics, they're in LA next. And so I think that people already are getting excited that the next Olympics are actually here at home. And the gap between the winter and the summer is shorter now.
Right.
Like it's I think it's like a year and a half it ends up being and stuff. So I think that also brought excitement because during these Olympics, they were already opening the portal to get tickets for the Summer Olympics in LA. And so I think that kind of Olympic fever, they did capitalize on that. And I thought they did a great job with that.
Yeah. And I think too, just like Minnesotans, again, weren't we like the top? I thought we were the top state in terms of medals.
Yes.
I could be wrong about that.
Well, and even in the men's hockey, the Wild had the most players in the Olympics.
Yeah, which is so crazy. And I feel like that's for Minnesotans, it's funny because even if maybe we feel like it's not quite as publicized when it comes to the Winter Olympics, here I think people are a little more invested.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of the sports that we play here and what we're interested in.
Right.
So there's always a little bit more of that. We're dialed in a little bit more up here when it comes to the Winter Olympics. I think you're right about that. And I think that the Olympics fever, like they totally capitalize off of that because I think it's for certain athletes, if you're only a Summer Olympic athlete, you got 4 years until you got to be ready to go again. But if you're a fan, you've only got 2 years max to wait before you've got another run at, oh my gosh, so exciting. And I think them being here is a really big draw for Americans in particular. But yeah, I mean, like, obviously we're here in America, so that's what our news cycle is dominated by. But I think a lot of the big upsets and some of the crazy drama and stuff like that happened quite a bit with the Americans this year, which was so interesting. So interesting. Except for the one guy that said he cheated on his girlfriend after he won bronze. I don't know. I think he might have been from Norway or Sweden or something.
I think he was Canadian, possibly.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think the Sweden team... No, that was the curling.
Yeah.
No, that was the curling, right? So there was like two cheating. One was like cheating with a significant other, and one was cheating
and the other
in the
one was
sport.
cheating by touching the thing. Oh my gosh. So maybe that's the
drama.
trend.
Yeah.
Seriously. I know. It's insane. I remember seeing it on the internet afterwards, the guy being like, I'm hoping that she'll forgive me if I tell everyone at the Olympics that I cheated on her. What? Crazy.
Using the Olympics as your PR, which is great segue into PR and advertising and marketing. It was really interesting this year. I don't know, and I think this is what caught my attention too, is I don't know that one brand that has current, like, let's say advertising on streaming services didn't capitalize on the Olympics, that they didn't create an ad that pertain to the Olympics. And I thought that was really cool that a lot of them were very emotional storytelling, nostalgic ones. Because I know we recently did the Super Bowl one talking about ads, but I think it kind of rolled right into the Olympics and where the advertisers kind of took that and ran with it and did a really good job. Yeah,
for sure. It's so funny. It felt like it was kind of everywhere. And like I said, I don't think I've ever noticed it this much. I think they had a really solid Team USA presence, like people who were kind of social media darlings and things like that, especially the figure skaters and the quad god and everybody else. So I think you had a lot of those people that were very, I don't know, like internet, their internet presence was already kind of there. Right. And so it was really easy for them to capitalize on it. I saw Honda was doing advertisements with the figure skaters and the rest of the team. Like, it's just, I don't think I've ever seen it that much. No. The volume of it was what I noticed.
Especially especially brands that you wouldn't normally, I think, associate with sports or things.
Absolutely.
Like Hershey's had one, and Walmart had one, and Comcast. I mean, they all did, and
Right.
were able to tie it back, and so I think that really worked in their favor. So
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
so overall, we'll just wrap this up. But what's your kind of parting thought on the Winter Olympics?
I think the biggest thing for me that's got to stick out is the hockey thing. I don't think I've ever seen something kind of crash and burn that spectacularly. And it changed the narrative entirely. I think it just really shows that when you're not prepared for these, it seemed to me that the men's team was kind of not prepared for what they were going to receive. They weren't prepared for this to be brought into their locker room. They weren't prepared
Right.
for the response afterwards. And people are still talking about it.
Right.
And it's still an ongoing like culture conversation now. So I think it just speaks to the fact that like even athletes in this day and age need to be PR trained and understand how their actions come across
Right.
and what they do afterwards. Because there were a lot of people who were saying that this might have been over a lot quicker had certain things been handled differently on both sides with the men and the women.
Right.
So yeah, it was just that was a quick turnaround, man.
Yeah.
That's got to sting a little bit.
Right.
And it doesn't diminish their win. I think it's a really great accomplishment, and especially doing it with both teams this year for the first time in like ever.
I think so. Yeah. Yeah.
But and again, doesn't diminish their accomplishment, but I do think for the public, it does. If that's what people are going to remember, then that's unfortunately what you got.
Right.
That's what you're going to leave with.
Right. And I think that's a really good point. The thought I had was that PR, you know, right? It's so important because people think of brands with companies, right?
Right.
A company has a brand, but you have a personal brand as well.
Absolutely.
And to be aware of that and to be aware of a crisis campaign.
Yeah.
You cannot prepare, whether it's your company, yourself, your brand, whatever it is, enough for a crisis to happen. And the crisis doesn't have to be catastrophic, but to always be prepared to have that PR plan in place for anything, you know, those crisis moments that how are you going to address this? Because it's going to happen, you know, at some point, or something's going to be spun a different way or some way that you didn't want it to. So how can you be prepared for that? And it's definitely something that we talk to our clients about a lot is PR is more important than ever, just because of, like you said, how quickly things can happen and spiral and little clips can be taken out of context and people can just run with things. And so you never, you know, thought it could happen, but with this day and age it can. So I think it's really important for everyone to just be aware of how PR and especially crisis PR is important to be prepared for.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, we would like to hear your 2 cents regarding the Olympics, what you thought of them. Like we said, they're coming up, the summer are coming up faster than we know here in LA. I would give anything to be able to go and get tickets. So, I mean, yeah. So share your thoughts of what you thought of the Olympics. We would love to hear your 2 cents for what it's worth, as you just heard ours. So make sure you tune in next time for another episode of For What It's Worth.